It sure has been a busy offseason for Steve Staios, especially with the Brady Tkachuk trade that shook up the core of this team. But new reports indicate the Senators might not be completely done building this roster for next season. Hello everyone, I am Eoghan Drumm, and welcome back to Senators Digest, where we talk all things Ottawa Senators. Today we will be getting into those new reports indicating some potential additions to the roster before we get into next season. What exact position will the Senators be looking at for that new addition? And if I think this actually makes sense for the team moving forward. We will be getting into that very shortly, but before we do, just another reminder that subscribing to the channel is 100% free. We notice around 90% of our viewers are not subscribed, and if you are an Ottawa Senators fan or even just a fan of the league in general and you want to stay in touch with latest news and rumors regarding the Ottawa Senators, this is the place for you. So please go down and hit that subscribe button. All right, so new reports have come out over the past couple days about some potential interest the Sens have in adding players, and in what position exactly? Well, that would be the right shot defenseman spot. So this is from Anthony DeMarco, and this was just a couple days ago. That the Senators, they've been looking for a right shot defenseman for quite some time now. I remember hearing this from just the trade deadline as well. So it has been a while since they've been looking for that right shot defenseman to add to their depth. And then some reports have linked Ottawa to Rasmus Ristolainen among other targets. So we'll get into Rasmus Ristolainen shortly, and also another player that's been linked to the Senators in the past. But before we do, just take a look quickly at their depth chart on the defense. We'll focus on the right shot defense. So as of now, it's Zub, Spence, Yakimchuk, and Matt. Those are the four right shot defensemen that will be fighting for roster spots. I would assume that all four will make the roster, including Yakimchuk. I think he will start the season on the team, but I think him and Matt will flip-flop in and out. But those are the options as of now. Spence is entering the first year of his new extension. Matt is on the last year of his deal, and he will be a UFA after this year. And same for Zub. He also will be a UFA. So there could be some shakeup on this right defense depth chart. So yeah, let's get into some of these players that have been rumored to be linked with the Senators. Obviously, this isn't official. These are all rumors, but potential targets the Sens could be looking at. And the first one, like we saw in that first report, was Rasmus Ristolainen, and he is a very big player. Plays for the Flyers. He's one of their more top end players on their depth chart for the defensemen. A little bit older in age. He's 31, I believe, going into next season. So he's been in the league for quite a while. Started his career with Buffalo, and then he has been in Philly for the past 5 years now. And he is a very solid defenseman. And let's just take a quick look at his scouting report, see exactly what we'd be looking at with Ristolainen. So the huge defenseman skates well, hits anything that moves, has a big shot, and can generate points, though his plus-minus numbers are at times not what teams want from someone who plays 20-plus minutes per game. Has to improve his play in his own zone to justify the kind of ice time he gets and make his offensive skills more valuable. Tends to overplay the puck and times. He would benefit from simplifying his game. So I personally don't think Ristolainen is that offensive-minded of a defenseman. I don't think that's the role he should be placed in. And, if the Sens do try and target him, I could see him being a player that would fit in well with Thomas Chabot on the right-hand side on the second defense pairing. That way he doesn't have to, lead the offense on the back end. Chabot can focus more. And then Ristolainen can just be that big body in his own zone and be more the defensive guy that Chabot is needed. Currently, Spence is in that spot. And Spence did have a very good year last year. I made a video about Spence, and I was very impressed with Spence last year, his first year with the team. And I think he has a big opportunity here to really have that second defense spot with Chabot this season. Has to come out well and start the season. But I think there is an opportunity here to add up for sure. And Ristolainen is a guy I think is definitely a potential suitor for the Senators. I think he plays a hard type of game, hard to play against, doesn't allow much in your own zone. He's a very physical player, big body. So I think he would fit very well in the defensive scheme of this team. Let's quickly just look at the cap hit, however. It is a little high. It's a 5.1, so it's not crazy. It is a little high, however, going into his last year. So he will be needing an extension after this season. So obviously, if this is a player they'd want to trade for, they'd have to do some roster shakeup because that cap hit isn't just something you can just throw right in the roster. You have to definitely subtract something from the roster. But definitely an option to look at for Steve Staios to add to this defensive core. Another player that has been linked. This was linked more during the trade deadline, so this isn't anything recent. But it is a player that is still been rumored to be on the trade block, and that is Zach Whitecloud. The Calgary Flames acquired him last January from the Vegas Golden Knights when they trade Rasmus Anderson away. And Calgary, it just seems like they've been looking to trade him for quite a while now. I don't exactly know why. I personally think Whitecloud is a very good player, and his cap hit is quite low. We will take a look at it very quickly. But I think Whitecloud is a solid player. He played quite well for the Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, I understand why Vegas got rid of him to add Rasmus Anderson. Anderson is a very good player. But the fact that the Flames want to trade Whitecloud like almost right away, they just got him just in January. Now he's still on the trade block, to be rumored, of course. But this is a good player that I think the Sens could definitely look at as well. Let's take a look at his scouting report. So the undrafted defenseman was signed out of college hockey and has used his size and physicality to earn a roster spot in the NHL. He's at his best when focused on keeping the puck out of his own net. He makes an excellent running mate for an offensive partner. He has grown into the kind of player coaches trust in key situations, and his offensive upside is showing itself as he gets more comfortable in the NHL. So, very similar to Ristolainen, more defensive focus defenseman, and we saw in that report that he fits well with an offensive-minded player. And that would be exactly the spot he would be thrown into on this roster. He'd probably, again, I'd say that second line with Chabot is definitely the spot where they're looking at, because I don't know if they have the most belief in Spence to be that high in the lineup. I think they'd prefer if he's third line. So I think that second spot with Chabot is really the target they're looking at. And Whitecloud would fit perfectly there as well. He is very smart. He has a high hockey IQ. He's physical as well, fairly big body. So again, this would just allow Chabot to have more offensive freedom. You can have a guy that doesn't have to worry as much on offense, and you can just kind of control the play from the back end, and then come back on defense, obviously. But you have that support with Whitecloud or Ristolainen, for that matter, if things were to go poor. And Whitecloud also does have a pretty solid cap hit. Only $2.75 million is getting paid. And for a player at his caliber, that is pretty low. He is currently slated as the first line defenseman for the Calgary Flames. And only making $2.75 million, that is an absolute steal of a contract for a first line defenseman. He's got 2 years left on that deal, so he will need an extension after, not next season, but the season after. These are two players the Sens could certainly look at to add on that right side. Depth is certainly key, especially after last season with all the injuries that went down at the end of the year. They had players who, just were not ready for the NHL moment, but they held their own for sure. They played very well, their defensive structure. Didn't matter who was playing. It just seemed like every night they were getting solid performances from everyone on the defensive depth chart. And it led them to the playoffs, and that's not all the reason that they weren't able to go further in the playoffs. But I think adding to this depth chart, and that way you just have options as well. If the player's not playing well, then you can just flip-flop a guy, because if you add one of these players or someone else who is a right shot defenseman, then you still have Matt and Paolo and Yakimchuk, unless they are shipped in these deals. Well, we'd have to see, obviously. But then your depth is just getting that much stronger. Because I also don't think the Sens have to be that aggressive with this. Because personally, I trust Matt and Paolo and Yakimchuk to do a perfectly fine job, at least for the start of the year. If things start going a little awry, then sure, maybe explore these options further for sure. But I think you don't have to be that aggressive with this. I am personally a fan of where this defensive structure is at. I think this is a very solid group. The first line, I wouldn't change at all. I love these Sanderson and Zoo playing together. But I do think what the Sens are looking at is that second line with Chabot. I just feel like they want Spence on the third line. But again, Spence proved that he is able to play higher minutes as well. And Spence had a good amount of time on the first pair with all the injuries that went on. And that third line with Clevin and Yakimchuk or Matt and Paolo, I still think that's solid. For a third line defensive pairing, I don't think there's any problem with that. Matt and Paolo is an Olympian also, so he has experience playing against top end players. So this is all stuff we'll have to keep an eye on as we enter training camp in just a few weeks' time. Very exciting stuff. I can't wait for the season to get started. What do you guys think? Do you think the Senators should be looking at Ristolainen, Whitecloud, any other players with the right shot defensive position? Let me know down in the comments. Also, I'm always open to some video suggestions. Please throw those down in the comments as well. And also, one last reminder to please go down and hit that subscribe button. It is 100% free, and it allows you to stay updated with Senators Digest content. That is all I have for you all today. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys all next time.